You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live.
Hello, welcome to Garibaldi Red. It's a bit mad to say, but we're already 1 week on from promotion and all those wonderful memories of Wembley and Market Square. We will touch on that a little bit more because we'll never get bored of talking about it. But we're also going to turn the clock forwards to next season in the Premier League, who Forest have been linked with, what they need, and the state of the squad in general. And to do that, first of all, I'm joined by Reds legend Garry Birtles. How are you, Gary?
Yeah, not bad apart from my teeth.
Yes. You sound fine to me, but you said you've got a problem with your teeth. So
yeah, I snapped my plate on Friday, and typical bank holiday, you can't get it fixed. So I've got to get it fixed after doing this. So I've got a little bit of a lisp. So yeah, so I apologise profusely before we start.
I can't believe you're just brushing that off. It sounds like quite a big deal to me, but you're a braver man than me, as we've established many times over the last 2 years. Second guest today is Nottinghamshire Live's Reds reporter, Sarah Clapson. No dental emergency, Sarah, I take it. Are you well?
Touch wood. Yeah, no, I'm okay.
Good. Glad to hear it. Right, like I say, we'll talk a little bit about Wembley because you're both friends of the podcast and it'd be good to hear how you were. Sarah, I say how you were. I mean, on the final whistle, you looked, how were you? You thought you were going to throw up, you said to me.
Yeah, I was quite emotional. I think it was just the culmination of the whole season, I think, more than anything, and the sense of what it was, the scale of what Forest had done over the whole time that Steve Cooper has been there, where they'd come from to where they'd got to. I think it was just so overwhelming, really, and it was something that it took me aback at the time, and still does, thinking about it. It was just incredible. What an amazing day, on top of the best season I can remember covering in my career, certainly, and it was just remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, I've watched videos back time and again. I haven't watched the game back. The game is horrendous. But I've watched the videos back from the final whistle and the celebrations. I mean, I didn't even know I liked Friedman. Sorry?
It wasn't that good.
I didn't even know I liked Freed from Desire as a song until last week. I'm just going to adjust Gary's volume because that stops the crackling. There we go, all sorted. Garry, you were in the royal box mixing it with the great and the good. But, well, how were the nerves in general for you and how was the experience?
I think there was more emotion after the Sheffield United game for me. It was just getting to Wembley, get to the final. We were there, and it was not always going to be a good game against Huddersfield. But I think we handled the game quite well. I think from back to front, we handled it quite well. I thought the three at the back were absolutely outstanding. I apologise again for this blooming lisp. It's a nightmare. It was emotional. I was sat with Guy Moussi as well, and the two of us were just absolutely on edge all the game. It's the worst 96 minutes watching football I think I've ever encountered. And then Samba got injured, and people saying, "Oh, well, don't hope it don't go to penalties," and this, all those little intricacies came into play, and it was just. I had a great time the whole day. I went down Saturday, because I didn't want to get caught in, what was happening on the Sunday, apparently. And from the start, I went to the Green Man pub, which is a designated Forest pub on the day of the game, because my kids were there, and they got in there earlier, and I went. And I had a couple of great hours with the fans. I was the only one looked like a parcel because I got my suit on and tie and everything. They've all got their, the scarves and everything. I must have had about, 500 or so photographs taken, and it was brilliant. I loved every minute of it. The fans were great. The atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. And to be part of that, the build-up to the game was, it was a privilege, really, to be there. And, it was a lot of hilarity, a lot of nerves. It was just a really, really good day.
What kind of spread are you getting in the royal box? Is it good food?
You can't say things like that.
Why not? I'm curious.
It was just like a normal director's box,
Okay.
Yeah, it was one of those.
We don't know what that's like.
Okay, sorry.
We get media facilities.
I was kindly invited there by the club, so it was fantastic to be able to do that. And just watch. I'm a great watcher of people and the reactions. When things are going on the pitch, obviously I watch what's going on, but it's also good to watch what's going on around. And there was so many nerves in that box, and you've got to give so much credit from the top, Mr. Marinakis. We are so lucky to have him as an owner, and I think that was rammed home really at the civic reception. He did the interview. I didn't hear it or see it, but apparently it was very good. And the delight for them was fantastic to see. He bought the club. We know why he bought the club, because of the European Cup all those years ago. Now he's got us in the Premier League, and you have to say that. I mean, Steve's done a magnificent job. Everybody at the club has done a magnificent job, from players, everybody, backroom staff. But it all starts at the very top, with Mr. Marinakis. And I think he got a little bit of stick unfairly at times, but he put money in when COVID was rife. He continued to pay the wages all the way through when no crowds were going in. So we've got a great deal to thank him for. And it was just nice to see a big smile on his face.
There's some additional love for you in the comments, Gary, beyond the normal. You're a legend. The privileges with the fans who had the photos taken, says one fan. Blueno70, who's got a Rangers. Is that a Rangers logo? I think it's a Rangers logo. Yeah. Thanks, Gary, for his service. An absolute class player and a gentleman. And Simon, thanks you and Moose for the photo. I thought I'd show you that because, you thought you might like it. Bit of extra love for Garry Birtles.
Well, I'm a fan as well. People forget that. My dad used to take me to Trentham when I was a kid. So I've always been a Forest fan. And to be with the fans, before the game was absolutely superb. The sun was out. The drink was out. Although I didn't drink, I think I had about a pint, and that was about it. But it was just, fantastic. The atmosphere was brilliant. And thank goodness it all panned out in the right way.
You probably made up for the beer in Market Square anyway the next day, I'm sure.
Oh, very dare you.
Let's look ahead to next season then, and we're going to go through some of these transfer rumours which are in double figures and discuss a few of those. But in general, Sarah, I mean, would you take 17th right now? Is that the aim and nothing more, or are we looking higher? What do you think?
I think, that has to be survival, has to be the aim. But knowing how Steve Cooper works and the mentality and the attitude that he wants from everybody, it will be, let's just go there, take it a game at a time and see where we end up and aim as high as they can. He won't kind of set any kind of ceiling or limit on it. He'll want to do his best, and he'll instill that in the whole squad, because that's the approach that he's always taken. But I guess if you're kind of looking at it from a logical point of view, making sure that you stay in the Premier League has to be the priority. It won't be easy. It'll be difficult. There is that gap between the Championship and the Premier League for sure, and it's about how adapting to it and coping with it all. But I think Forest are more than capable of doing it.
What do you think, Gary? They have to look above 17th. If you set that goal of just survive, is that a dangerous trap you're setting for yourself in a way?
I think it can be, can't it? Because you're on the defensive from the first game then, if you're thinking like that. And as Sarah rightly said, I don't think Steve's like that at all. And I think he'll be given the wherewithal to go out and buy players and add to the squad. Players are going to leave. We've already spoken about that. That's obvious. But I'm quietly confident because of the man who's in charge, Steve Cooper, the way he goes around things and about things. And, I've watched at length, when he does training, and it's just really impressive to watch what he does, how he does it, how the players react to it. And, it's been, a privilege to be asked to go and watch these sessions and be, made to feel a little bit part of it, really. And, I never got into football to coach. It never appealed to me. And I think it's one of the hardest jobs possibly in football. And Steve just makes it look easy. He's got that knack of making things simple, look easy, be easy. He's, totally relaxed. The players are relaxed with him. And it's just great to see that, the club have got the right man in charge. The past, you'll tell me how many managers have come and gone over the years, but his credentials speak volumes. Liverpool Academy, the England under-17s, what he did with Swansea, and now he's the next man. We've been waiting for that next manager to take us to that next step, and Steve wanted that. You could see how much he wanted that, and I'm just over the moon for him that he's been able to do it, to achieve it. And he'll be absolutely buzzing as well now because Wales got through to the World Cup, last night as well. So a massive double whammy for him.
Yes, well done to Brennan Johnson as well. Quite a week for him.
How good was he when he came on, by the way?
Very good.
I didn't see it. I was working. Everyone says he was.
It annoyed me this morning because I watched BBC Breakfast and the sports reporter. He said, Brennan Johnson could have made it 2-0 in a tone that I thought, hold on a minute, do you know how difficult that was to do what Brennan did? More or less his first touch and he's hit the post. For goodness sake. Staggering, the way some people, review things.
Looking at the squad then, Sarah, I suppose there's a danger here, isn't there? You can go about this different ways. We've seen Brentford and Burnley and Leeds generally come up with the same squad and do quite well. And then counter to that, Watford have done all sorts of crazy different approaches. I think they brought basically a different team this season and struggled. What do you hope Forest will do? What do you think they're going to do in terms of the number of players that are going to come into the club?
I think they will try to stick with the basis of what they have at the moment, and include the loan players as part of that, and try to make sure they have that nucleus there. Because I think it was Dave Murphy who spoke last week and basically said, if it ain't broke, why try and fix it? Why try and break something up when it's done so well? And you've got that harmony and that unity and that team spirit that's carried them all this way and was so crucial to getting promotion in the first place. To break that up, I think he said it doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'd have to agree with that. Yes, it needs supplementing, you need adding to it, and you need to make sure you have the right strength in depth and the right options there. But for me, sticking with that group of players has to be the right way forward, because they've shown what they can do. And the way that Forest have recruited in the last 2 transfer windows, the kind of direction they've taken, a lot of it is young players with a lot of promise mixed in with a bit of experience. And I think that holds well in the Championship. There was a lot of thought that went into that. And I know they did a lot of research on the kind of age range that you need within your squad to get promotion. And I think that also applies in the Premier League as well. You need young, exciting players, but you also need players with a bit of experience. And Forest have got that. They've got a few players who've played in the Premier League and who know what to expect. And you've also got your bright young talents. And it's about trying to bolster what's there, but not disrupt it too much, because the team spirit and the unity was so evident throughout the whole season. And it made such a massive difference. It's something that Forest haven't had in years gone by. And you can see what it works wonders when you do have that. So I think they will make quite a few signings, but I don't think they will try and break that squad up too much.
Is that a big thing to harness for you still, Gary? Momentum and unity can take them to a certain degree quite far, can't it?
It can, but that won't get disrupted. The unity and the harmony of the club won't. It won't be allowed to, no matter who comes in. It almost reminds me of when Trevor came. Brian Clough made sure that because he was the first £1 million player, there was no way he was going to disrupt what had been there before, what was going on then. And, Trevor really appreciated that at the time. And, he was great for us. So anybody who comes in will be expected to just fit in exactly how the players are now. Saw the Sunday paper yesterday, one of the Ukrainian strikers, 10 million was mentioned. I think the lad who scored against Scotland, was it?
Yeah.
So I think that is the one area desperate to get right. Because Lewis Grabban, ages against him. Keenan Davies, will he go back to Villa? And Sam Surridge, who I love, what he does, the way he plays. He's going to be there as well. And you think, well, better players come in. Do they play, better with better players? it's going to be interesting, to see who does come in, who leaves, and what the squad will look like, come the start of the season. But I think it needs probably four new signings, or maybe a couple more to add to that, because we're going to lose players as well. There are going to be players leaving that squad, so the numbers have to be replenished. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Steve does.
Yeah, let's go through it position by position then. Sarah, I wouldn't have signing a keeper wouldn't have really strengthened gone into my head at all coming off the back of the season. But then we see yesterday this rumour saying, the report in the Sun saying Forest are interested in Nick Pope. Burnley want 40 million. Forest would go to 12. I mean, is it a bit cheeky to turn your nose up at an England goalie? Is it an interesting use of money when there's probably it's limited to a certain extent? I mean, what do you think about rumours like this and where Samba stands?
Yeah, I think Brice Samba is more than capable of being a Premier League goalkeeper. I guess it's making sure you have a number two as well, because Ethan Horvath has come in and he wants to play. He wants to be a number one. So I guess it kind of depends on him a little bit and how he sees his future as well. But yeah, I saw quite a few people responding to that rumour, and yeah, that you can't dismiss something when you're linked with an England goalkeeper. But for me, I think there's other priorities. I think there's other areas that need strengthening more and would need more money spent than the goalkeeper position.
Yeah, I suppose there's a precedent there in a sense, Gary, isn't there? I mean, when back in your time, Forest went out and signed the best goalie in the world. That's not feasible now, but if there's a better goalie out there, then I suppose Forest would be silly not to go for it. But we're all big fans of Samba, aren't we?
Yeah, hold on a minute. I'm going to stick up for Samba here.
Yeah, we're all big fans of him.
I would say he's better than probably half a dozen goalkeepers in the Premier League. I think, personally, when he's on his game and he doesn't do daft things, he's a great shot stopper. He comes out, takes the pressure off defenders, and I honestly think he could hack it at the highest level. And spending that much on a goalkeeper, it's very excessive. And yeah, it's an emotive one again, because he's been different class for us this season. And the penalty saves against Sheffield United, we'll remember that for a long time to come. So he deserves a chance at the top table without a doubt. And like Sarah said, I think there's more pressing positions to be sorted out than the goalkeeping one.
Yeah, I'd be giving Brice a new contract. Has he got a year left, hasn't he, Sarah? I think.
Yes.
I think that's right. Yeah, I'd be giving him another few years and sticking with that. But you can't turn your nose up at, Pope's a good goalie. I'm not a class actor, not criticising that aspect of it. Defence then, obviously, Cook, Worrell, McKenna, absolute linchpins of the team. But then beyond that, Sarah, Figueiredo's probably going. Panzo and Mbesa are a bit young. Do you assume Figs is going, and do you expect maybe loan deals for Panzo and Mbesa to get more experience now?
Yeah, I think those two need to build up their game time, and you're not going to get that in the Premier League, and they need to start getting the experience. Really, they've got a lot of promise and a lot of potential, and they are very highly rated. But I think to include them as part of the Premier League squad, it doesn't quite have the right mix there. So I would be looking to strengthen in that department and add a bit of cover and somebody perhaps with a bit of experience as well, because it's such a crucial part of the team. And those three, Worrell, McKenna and Cook, have provided a great platform, and we've seen the difference that they've made. So I think you want somebody who can provide backup, who can provide competition, who can provide good cover there, because it's so crucial to the way that Forest play.
What about you, Gary? Would you have any reservations about those three at the back cutting it in the Premier League?
It's always easy to say yes, they can do it, or no, they can't, until you put them in the Premier League. But I'll just say one thing: Leicester, Arsenal, Liverpool. All three Premier League teams, and those three did particularly well. I think Figueiredo might have been in there as well at the time, maybe. But that proved that they can do it against top teams, because Arsenal, Leicester, and Liverpool are three top teams in the Premier League. and we weren't outclassed by any of them. Liverpool, sneaked it with that one goal, so that will give everybody a massive lift going into the Premier League season. I think we've all seen, the problems Leeds had at the back. They had a terrible defensive record, and only stayed up at the last minute, sort of thing. But that's the nature of the Premier League. You're taking that massive step up to another level, and as a player, you can't wait to do that, and then test yourself against the best and see if you can do that in the top level. And they'll be looking forward to it. But like I say, when you've had that opportunity against Premier League teams, it does help you. Makes you realise, for me, it's about concentration. I've always said this before. At the top level, if you switch off a little bit more than you would in the Championship, you'll get torn apart. That's how good players in the Premier League are. You can get away with it in the Championship because you're going down a league, and the players aren't as good in the Championship as they are in the Premier League. But when you go to the top, the levels of concentration have got to be, for 90 minutes. You can't switch off. And, that's the one thing I think maybe lets people down when they do get promoted from the Championship.
True. I think Figueiredo played against Liverpool, if I'm remembering that right. But he's probably going to go. He's been a great servant, certainly. I'll just read out some of the names linked with Forest. And in terms of central defenders, Mikel Nade, who plays for St Etienne, who've just been relegated. Joe Rodon, the Tottenham defender, who was with Cooper at Swansea. That one sounds sensible to me. Jamal Lascelles and Attila Salazai. I'm probably saying that horrendously. The Hungarian defender. I don't think there's anything in that.
You're going to say Attila the Hun, then?
Well, I think he's about as likely to sign as that.
That'd be a comeback and a half, that would, wouldn't it?
That's a rumour from Turkey, which is like the Wild West for transfer rumours, so I'm not sure about that one at all. Right wing back, Jed Spence, Sarah, the saga. I mean, I assume it's going to rumble on a bit. He's away with the under-21s. It sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong here, Forest and Spurs are kind of the favourites, but Newcastle, Dortmund, Roma, Brentford are kind of all in the frame as significantly interested parties. How do you see this one developing?
I think it's just a bidding war, and who is willing to pay the most. And also, I think Jed Spence will probably have a say in it as well, where he wants to go. And that's something that you would hope will count in Forest's favour, because he's loved his time at the club. He's been happy there. He's played his best football there. He obviously has settled really well. But he's linked with so many clubs and so many big clubs as well. He's got his pick, really. And if you've got somebody like a Tottenham or somebody in Europe offering you everything that they can offer, it's difficult. It's not an easy decision to make. I don't think it's something that's going to happen quickly. You want to spend a bit of time thinking about it, and like I say, it's a bidding war. It's who coughs up the most money. So I think it might have a little while to run yet.
Well, for once, you'd like to think that wouldn't be the case. The bidding war. Sometimes players will just say, I want to stay here. You hope that's the case, rather than his agent saying, well, let's wait for the highest bidder and blah, blah, blah. You sometimes think the player would take it out the agent's hands a little bit and say, no, I don't want to go there. I'm happy here. Whether that'll happen or not, I'm not sure. But it'd be nice to see that.
It's easy to say, what would you have done, Gary? But trying to be, with an element of neutrality, the chance to play Champions League football with Spurs, or the chance to stay at Forest where you've developed as a player. I mean, it's a tough decision, I suppose, isn't it?
It is, but is he going to be a first choice? If he goes to somewhere like Tottenham, will he be, playing on a regular basis? It's all right saying Champions League, but if you're on the bench, you're not really playing Champions League unless you're, thrown on as a substitute. So in that respect, you've got to weigh up the pros and cons, whether you're going to be, a regular in the first team. That's never guaranteed. So it is a difficult one. He's a young lad as well. He's got a lot to learn still, but, he's had a magnificent season along with Brennan Johnson, and he rightly getting all the plaudits he deserves, because he's a real threat going forward. And it's no surprise that a lot of teams are looking at him, because everybody wants somebody with pace, with a bit of creativity in the final third. he's got, you know, a couple of tricks up his sleeve. You know, he's one of those who are so difficult to stop when he's in full flow. Although I think to be fair to Sheffield United and Huddersfield, they played him quite well in the games we saw. You know, I think they nullified the threat, but he's always liable to wriggle free and make something happen. You know, if he's shackled for about 85 minutes, you know, you have 5 minutes in a game where he can turn a game on its head. He's that sort of player, and it'd be interesting, you know, to see what Forest will do to try and keep him.
True. I'm sure they're drawing up a list of alternatives. One of those is Issa Kabore, who's a Man City player who had a season on loan at Troyes, I think you would say, in France, and won Best Young Player at AFCON. He's 21, so he's very promising. There's also Richie Larea, Sarah. We don't really know much about him still, do we? He's been here for 6 months. He wasn't on the bench for the playoff final. Is he still a good option potentially?
I think he's maybe a squad option. I'm not sure he's seen quite as a first choice at the moment. I think he's still adapting and still learning, and I think he's maybe still got a little way to go to push himself up that pecking order. I thought he looked pretty decent when he has played. I mean, he's not really got a proper chance to get going, but he's kind of shown flashes of what he's capable of and what he can do. But would he play week in, week out in the Premier League? I'm not so sure at the moment. I think it would be tough for him, having come in and taken a while to adapt to English football in general and the Championship, to then expect him to make the step up to the Premier League. I think that would be a big ask.
There's a sort of question like that for Max Lowe, isn't there, Sarah, about whether he could step up? Do you get the sense Forest want to buy him? Yeah,
I think they will try to. It's whether it's what Sheffield United want, I guess. And when you're a Premier League club, there's always a Premier League premium, and clubs think they can charge you a little bit more than what a player is probably worth. Yeah, I mean, he's been in the Premier League. He perhaps didn't have the best of seasons, but he wasn't particularly happy at Sheffield United. He wants to come to Forest. He's made that very, very clear. I know they've said that they're not under any pressure to sell him, but I think they will have to cut their cloth a little bit. So if Forest pay the right amount of money, I'm pretty sure they would get him. The only question mark, I guess, is over his injury record, because he's struggled with that this season, and he has in the past as well. And it's whether you take a little bit of a risk, I guess. Is he going to be fit for a whole season? Is that something you just kind of take with the territory? It's a difficult one, because I think he is really good, and I know that Steve Cooper really does like him. He rates his defensive ability probably a little bit more than Jed Spence's, and he does offer something going forward as well. So I think he'd be a good addition if Forest can get him for the right price. But that's, I guess, the same for a lot of players. It's all about getting the right price. You don't want to be overspending, because all of a sudden you're splashing millions around and you end up with not a lot for your money.
You nodded at the injury comment there, Gary. I mean, you don't want to be relying on Jack Holback in the Premier League, really. You want Jack in midfield, don't you? And it's his specialist role.
Yeah, but what he's done in the role he's been given has been exceptional. That's why he was up there vying for Player of the Year, Player of the Season. I think he's been absolutely fantastic for Forest. He's gone about his business so professionally, you know, and like McKenna as well, and Cook, you know, and Worrell, all these players. You know, you thought Jed Spence would be up there for, you know, Player of the Season, Brennan Johnson, rightly so. But you're talking about, you know, players further back, you know, defenders, and you build success from the back. You know, Brian Clough always did that. That keeping clean sheets are so important, and that showed in the final at Wembley. Yeah, we weren't at our best. There were a lot of nerves out there. We were giving the ball away quite a bit, but like I say, I think we managed that final really well, marshalled by the experience at the back. And that includes Jack and, you know, the three lads in the middle. It was a collective performance on the day that was enough. You know, it was enough. It was an own goal. You know, Brian Clough would have been looking down saying, yeah, delighted with that. 1-0, clean sheet, own goal, don't care. And that's how you have to face these things. We stopped them scoring. They never had, you know, hardly had a shot. They had a lot of possession. You know, they moved the ball quicker than us at times, but we coped with it because the game plan was there, from the manager. And that's why, he should have been manager of the season for me, in every capacity, because, what he got out of that, a lot of the same players in that squad was phenomenal. The belief they have in him and the belief he has in them, it's been staggering. It's been great to watch because I know what it's like, when you've got a group of players who just play for each other. That's why we won what we did. It wasn't a fluke. It was just that, we've got a great squad together, great camaraderie. And, that's what seems to be happening under Steve now with the group of players he's got. And, that puts a smile on my face. And, he's put a smile on the whole city of Nottingham, Steve, incredible, and just watching people enjoy themselves at the civic reception, from Mr. Marinakis down, all the people involved from Greece, they were just absolutely over the moon. And it was just fantastic to see those massive smiles on their faces.
Yeah, everything does feel a bit better after Wembley, certainly. James Garner, Sarah, I guess we go through the team. Forest obviously want him back. What's the latest on him?
I think that one, it's been a little bit patient with. Obviously, he's Manchester United's player. They've got a new manager in. He wants to assess him and see what he can bring, I guess. So I think that's one that is going to take a little time. Forest are right at the head of the queue if Manchester United do want to send him out on loan again, or if they want to sell him, I guess, because he needs Premier League experience now, and Forest can now offer that. So that definitely counts in their favour. But it all depends on what Manchester United think and where they see him in their plans. And that's something that I think we're going to have to wait until pre-season, until they've had a chance to assess him properly. So that's one that requires a bit of patience.
I mean, they've also got Cafu, Brian Ajada, who another one who might need a loan, Tyrese Ford, who might need a loan. Harry Arter's still on the books. And I don't want to anger people, but players often have pay rises written into their contracts after promotions. So he might be on yet more money for another year before his contract runs out. Is this one area, Gary, where you think Forest might have to add a little bit of support for Yates, and if Garner is back, still needs someone else?
I mean, you can't do a great deal about contracts. All you can do is probably buy the contract out and say, we'll pay you up, and thank you very much, and that happens. Whether the player wants that or not, I don't know. But I think all the plans will obviously be in place. The one thing you've worried me about with players associated with coming to the club, I've not heard of any of them.
Yeah,
that's and I think that will worry fans as well a little bit. I'm not obviously I don't watch a lot of foreign football. I used to commentate on it, but I don't anymore. So I used to see players, like that and could comment on them. But because various companies lose contracts, you don't do it anymore. I think maybe the fans will be looking at. We've mentioned Pope, and we know about him. His credentials, England goalkeeper, and they'll be probably happier with that than some of the names you've mentioned. Because we know how difficult the Premier League is. Coming over and getting acclimatised to the Premier League is very, very difficult. Even the great players who've come from the top, Henry, and it didn't hit off straight away. So it's not always that easy. The greatest players probably do it better than most, but it's not an easy league to come into because of the nature of it. It's just absolutely full on. It's fast, it's frenetic. It's different to Spain. It's different to Italy, and you've got to get the right players to come in to be, acclimatized to the Premier League. I think, people with experience who've been there, done it a little bit, and then bring in players around, those players who know what it's all about.
I'll just read the names out of the players that have been linked in for central midfield. Joe Rothwell, free agent from Blackburn, had a pretty good time there. Callum Stiles from Barnsley, 21-year-old. Forest have kind of been linked with him. I remember trying to get his agent's number a year ago to try and chase that one, so that sounds pretty realistic. He's 21 and just played for Hungary against England through his grandmother's side. And Will Smallbone, who plays for Southampton, who's been linked with a loan, but Forest only get 2 loans, so you really want to go for quality there. I don't know very much about him at all. Wingers, Zinkernagel, Sarah, good season. Will Watford want him back, do you think, to try and lead their charge, try and get back in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think he's out of all the loans, he's perhaps the one with a little bit of a question mark. I think because he can be a bit inconsistent. And yeah, Watford will probably think, well, he's got 2 promotions now in successive seasons, and he's proved himself in the Championship this year with Forest. And I think they'll probably look at him and think, well, he can play a big part for us next year. I think he'd be great to come back because he does that role so well. He's so crucial to it. He doesn't always get the credit he deserves, I think. And yeah, he can be a bit up and down, and he can be a bit frustrating with the decisions he makes and the shots he has. And he probably should have scored more goals than he has, for sure. But if you really watch him play, he works so hard, and he's so integral to that pressing, the press that Forest have, and he just links everything up really well. So I would definitely have him back, because again, he's somebody that knows that Forest will know what they're going to get. They know what they're going to expect from him. He knows the club he's settled in well, and I think he can have a role to play next season. But again, it's up to Watford.
What do you think, Gary? He put up good numbers, but he had spells of the season where he wasn't in form and spells where he was on fire. Do you rate him enough to play in the Premier League?
He's the one I think who frustrates me a little bit more than anybody, because he's clearly got the ability, but the number of times he's got in really good areas and should have scored, didn't score in big games, the Liverpool game, Sheffield United away, the one that was it Jack Colback scored where he perhaps should have scored, the goalkeeper saved it on the line. His assist, assist wise, he's really good. But it's all about consistency, I think. And sometimes he is the one. He always seems to be the one who gets bought off, and substituted. So, yeah. Why did Watford let him go? You always ask questions like that. But that's down to Steve and the people at the club. They will have a list of players they know they don't want anymore that are going to be leaving the club. And until, we see that list, we can just speculate, and that's all we can do. True.
One player who we're pretty sure Forest do want, not sure they put a bid in yet, but they're certainly keen, is Morgan Gibbs-White. Gary, one player you will have seen play for Sheffield United. Obviously, he missed that penalty against Forest, but he looks he's a good player, isn't he, Gary?
He certainly looked it. He looked lively. He looked like a big threat, and he looked like a player who would play very well with better players around him. I think you can only grow and learn when you've got better players around you and experienced players around you. And he'd come to a club that would embrace that, because I keep using that word, but I can't help it, because that is what is happening at our football club at the moment. And, he'd feel comfortable within the system that Steve plays, the way he goes about it. Training always looks like fun. And, that's the important thing. You've got to enjoy going into work. And that's why, we always used to love it going into work with Brian Clough, because it's totally different to what it is now. It was the unpredictability about it then. We just didn't know what's happening from one day to the next. You couldn't wait to find out what was going to happen, because, you might be told to bring your passport in because we're going to Callum Law, or, he'd take you at Woolham Park and run the legs off you. It was just, then you got 2 or 3 days off. Yeah, so it's a whole lot different now. But like I say, the professionalism down at that football club at the moment is overwhelmingly good in every facet of the club, from the chairman. People got a lot, stick at certain times. Apologise for my teeth again. But I thought wrongly, because I always said at the time, be careful what you wish for. And that's come to fruition. I hate to say I was right, but the people at that football club who went through all that, I don't know what to call it, getting stick from fans and everything. It's easy to give stick out, but if you stick with people who are good people, then you get the rewards that we're seeing now. And I think the whole football club, from top to bottom, is in a very, very, very good place at the moment. And Yeah, and that's down to the people who've been there all the way through it, the process, and since Steve came in, and we've all been waiting so long for that sort of comment to be coming out of especially me as an ex-player. I've been desperate for the club to get back in the Premier League, to do well, and I haven't been able to get the smile off my face since it all happened. And yeah, there's a lot of good people at that football club, and thank goodness they stuck by them, and they've got us there. Collectively they've got us there. They've got the right manager at the right time, and it's all come together. Recruitment is good because everything seems to be in place in the right order at the moment, and yeah, I just can't wait for next season now.
Let's reserve the last 10 minutes or so for strikers and rattle through those. Don't want to keep people too long. Sarah, a couple of names we have to talk about. Keenan Davies, first of all, and then Lewis Grabban, and we'll come on to other bits after that. Davies, Sarah, it feels like there's a deal to be done there, hopefully, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I know he's very keen, and he again, another loan player that's really enjoyed his time at the club. It's what Villa want for him, I suppose, and how much Forest are willing to pay. But I think he'd be a terrific addition. He's been fantastic since he came and made a real difference. And I think he would cause a lot of Premier League defences problems because of the way he plays. Very different striker to Sam Surridge, for example, but offers something else and has his own strengths that he can bring. It was a real boost having him back for the playoffs. So I would definitely be trying to get him back. And again, you just don't want to pay too much. If Forest could get the right price for him, he'd be a great addition. But it's how much Villa drive it up by.
I'll tell you what, I'm like you, Sarah. I like what he does at times, but I didn't like what he did in the final, because I watch centre forwards, I watch strikers. It was a lovely summery day. He got gloves on for, I don't know why. That's one of my big bugbears.
I think it's superstition.
Okay, so I'll give him that one then. But I thought his performance was one of the poorest I've seen from him. Because Sky do the games, they get the stats at half time of how many touches players have and everything. And I text the commentator, I've worked with Daniel Mann, to find out how many touches he had in the first half. 12. 12 touches. And I kept watching him, and this is just me as an ex-striker who I think I'm entitled to comment on it, because I did play at a decent level, and I was a workaholic when I played football. I never stopped. I was always closing down, and I watched the first 45 minutes, and I was watching the poor midfield players on the ball, and then I was watching him, and there was no movement. He was just walking, and he wasn't even coming towards the ball. And I'm thinking, for goodness sake, what are you going to wake up in a minute and do this? And I like him because I've seen him totally dominate, Premier League defenders. But that afternoon, it was just, whether it was nerves or not, I don't know. But
he said afterwards he felt his hamstring early in the game, but then should he have not come off really at half time or something?
If you've got a hamstring problem, you come off, because hamstrings, if you've got a hamstring, you've got a hamstring.
Yeah, limits you, doesn't
it may be a little bit, unfair on him, but I have to be like that because he plays in my position, and I watch things like that, and I think, well, what would I have done in that situation? And like I say, I was like, cat on a tin roof. I was just all over the place. I always wanted to give the man on the ball an option. I'd always come towards him, offer myself up, and if not, then I'd spin and go the other way. And he didn't do that in that first 45, and I think because our defence played so well, that maybe let him off the hook a little bit regarding that. But then Sam Surridge comes on, and he's totally different. His movement causes problems for defenders. He drags them out of position, and it was good that we've got that difference. I'm not having a go at Keenan Davies. It sounds like I am. I'm possibly on that one first half performance, I was disappointed. But yeah, nerves can come into it. But I don't know. I'm thinking. I always think why football clubs let players go out on loan. Sometimes it's because maybe they don't fancy them, or they want them to get, a little bit of experience. And I think he's got it. I think he's just got to realise he's got it. And when he realises that totally, then he'll be, a total different player. So it's not a, major criticism. It was just on that one performance in that 45 minutes.
Yeah, as someone points out in the comments as well, obviously Surridge was carrying an injury and he's gone off to Germany to have surgery. So they were both crocs. So I guess it was managing through the game. The other striker to talk about, what did you do with Lewis Graben, Gary? Do you have to invest now in a real top quality striker?
I think so. I think that is the most important position. Probably because I played that position, but they do the hardest job in the business. They score goals, and in the Premier League, you're desperate for that. You see the teams that go down. I did Premier League games, and the top scorers in some of the clubs were less than 10. Like Ward-Prowse, I think, was a top scorer for Southampton. But then you see other clubs, and I think 6 was one of the top scorers. My teeth are doing my head in here, by the way. I've got to get sorted today. So you're going to struggle if you don't score goals. And if you concede goals as well, like Leeds, that's why they were at the bottom. And that's why Everton struggled, because they've got no regular goal scorer. So that's the importance of having somebody there who will get you at least double figures. If you can't get into double figures, as a team with a striker, then you're going to be in the bottom half of the table struggling, because, if you don't score, the pressure becomes more intense on defenders, and you get pushed backwards. So it's important they get that position sorted, I think.
What's your instinct on Graben, Sarah? Because he was keen, or he was certainly close to going to the Middle East at one stage, wasn't he? Do you think maybe Forest shake hands with him and let him go and have a big payday and finish up there, maybe?
I think it's a difficult one. Partly it's what he wants and whether he wants to go elsewhere. From Forest's point of view, I think it is tough because he can score goals, and I think he probably could still do that at Premier League level, even though his age does count against him a little bit, and you do have to take sentiment out of it. It's tough, and he's a leader. I know Steve Cooper rates that aspect of his personality very highly. The fact that he's been captain and he's really helped some of the younger players on. He's worked a lot with Keenan Davies, and I think he's carried that role really well this season. I think previously it's something that maybe weighed heavily on him, whereas this year he's really risen to that challenge. It's tough. It really is tough, because you've only got a certain amount of money, and you do want to use it wisely. You want to use it on players that Forest obviously have a younger profile that they're looking at. It's difficult because I still think he has something to offer. I think
under Steve, he's looked a different player for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think his work rate, really improved. I watched him on the pitch, and he's trying to lead by example. He's vocal. And before, I don't think, he was like that so much. But that again is down to Steve Cooper. What he's done and how players respond to how he wants them to play. And it's like, we've said it before, the shackles were off on every player in that squad. And Lewis was, one, to include in that, because, his movement was better, I think. The thought process seemed to be better when he was on the pitch. He was, you saw him gesticulating, and it was a different player for me under Steve. And I think you can say that about a lot of them. And that's where, so much credit goes towards the coaching staff and Steve, because you saw different things from players who you didn't think you'd see that from. And age always is against you, but Lewis is one of those who, if you have him on the bench, he comes on for 15, 20 minutes. If the service is right, he can get you out of a hole, or he can, maybe nick you a win in the last, because he can finish, if the service is good enough. So it's one that Steve's going to have to really grapple with, because we know at his best he can get the goals. He is a finisher, and you always want a finisher.
Right, I think we'll leave it there. I'll just mention the names of the players Forest are interested in or linked, although I would say, as Sarah will attest as well, all these names mentioned are probably going to be completely different to the ones that actually signed, because that's the time of the season we're in. But Habib Diallo, a Senegal striker who played for Strasbourg. Gary mentioned Artem Drovbik, if I'm saying that right, who plays for Dnipro in Ukraine and is a Ukrainian international. And the other one is Armando Broja, who is at Chelsea, who was on loan at Southampton last season. Lots of teams looking at him. Newcastle, West Ham, both Milan clubs, I think. So we'll see where that one goes, if anywhere. But I think, like Sarah said, Keenan Davies is at the top of that list. Right, we'll leave it there. I've got 3 more episodes lined up, one for this week and then a couple for the next 2 weeks, and we'll come back when there's actual concrete transfer news, I'm sure, and keep doing these through the summer. So thanks to everyone who watched along and gave us lots of positive feedback over the last few weeks. Incredible figures for ratings. We were in the top 10 for this UK football podcasts for the whole country last week. Well, the top 6 I think we made it to at one point, which was pretty mental. So thanks for that. Gary, thank you very much. We'll let you get your teeth fixed.
Oh, desperate.
Well, we appreciate you joining us and soldiering on for 51 minutes. It was very noble of you. So much appreciated. Sarah, thank you.
Thank you.
And we shall see everyone later this week.